My friend Marcus has a knock. 3 slow, 2 fast, 1 slow. He's had it since college. Not something we agreed on, just a habit he fell into. The way some people always tap the same rhythm on a steering wheel without thinking. After 15 years, I know that knock the way I know his laugh. You hear it once through a door, and you don't need to look. I heard it at 2:14 in the morning on a Wednesday in November. I was already awake. One of those nights where your brain just won't let go. Nothing specific, just the restless kind that keeps you staring at the ceiling, cycling through every unresolved thing. My house is on a quiet suburban street that backs up against a strip of conservation woods on both sides. The kind of neighborhood where you can hear a car slow down 3 blocks away. I'd been in bed for 2 hours not sleeping when the knock came through the front door, clearly enough that I sat up. My first instinct was concern. Marcus doesn't live far, 12 minutes, maybe 15. We've been through enough together that a middle-of-the-night visit felt possible. Car trouble, something bad. I know his life well enough to picture what might drive him to my door at 2 a.m. I got up, walked through the dark living room, and had my hand on the knob before I stopped. I don't know exactly what stopped me. There was nothing obviously wrong. Just the knock, then silence. But something sat badly in my chest, and I held the knob without turning it, and I listened. That's when I heard the breathing. Quiet, just on the other side of the door. The rhythm of someone who'd been walking and was settling, slightly elevated, coming down. Normal, human. But I hadn't heard footsteps crossing my porch. I have 2 loose boards out there, the same 2 I've been meaning to fix for 3 years. They creak loudly enough to hear from the kitchen. Whatever was breathing on my porch hadn't come across them. I let go of the knob and stepped back. Then my name came through the door. Marcus's voice. My first name, clean and clear, said at the volume of a greeting. Hey. Then my name. Casual. The voice of someone who expected to be let in. I've heard Marcus's voice in every condition over 15 years. Drunk, exhausted, furious, scared. I know what he sounds like performing calm versus actually being calm. What came through my door sounded like him. Not a recording, not an impression. The specific texture of his voice, the slight rhythm he has when saying something simple. But the porch boards hadn't creaked. I called him from where I stood, screen brightness low. He picked up on the 4th ring, hoarse and slow. He'd been asleep. He was home. I told him wrong number, sorry, go back to sleep, and hung up. My name came through the door again. Same inflection, same casual ease. A pause, then a 3rd time, different now, lower. The way Marcus sounds when something real is happening and he needs your full attention. I've heard that register maybe a dozen times in 15 years. Funerals, hard phone calls. The night his dad was in hospital. It's not a tone most people would even clock as distinct from his regular voice. Whatever was on my porch had clocked it. I backed into my kitchen and stood with my spine against the counter. The loose boards never creaked. I never heard footsteps leaving. The breathing dropped below what I could hear through the door. I stood there until 4 a.m., then sat at the kitchen table until it got light. I opened the front door at 7 in the morning. The porch was empty, frost on the lawn, clear morning, nothing you'd look at twice. I have a camera mounted above the door, wide angle, infrared, motion activated. I pulled the footage and watched 2 hours and 6 minutes of it. The porch is empty. Every frame. No figure, no shadow, nothing suggesting any presence. But the knock is in the audio. Clear as anything. 3 slow, 2 fast, 1 slow. Then a pause. Then my name in Marcus's voice. Then the 3rd instance, lower, deliberate. I've exported that clip and listened to it around 60 times now. The sound is there. The porch is empty. I told Marcus about it a few days later. He listened without interrupting, which is unusual for him. When I finished, he asked if I wanted him to walk the perimeter with me, check the edge of the tree line. I said I already had. He went quiet again. What I keep coming back to is the specificity. That knock is something only people who know Marcus would recognize. 15 years of repetition, consistent, particular. Whatever was at my door had been close enough, long enough, to absorb it exactly. And the third instance of my name, the serious register, that's not in his general tone. It's something Marcus uses in specific moments under specific emotional pressure. Whatever was outside had observed and cataloged the difference. I live on a street backed up to woods on both sides. I've been here 3 years. I don't know what can stand in a tree line and observe a house long enough to learn a person's voice that completely. I don't know what it needs that information for. What I think about most is how close I came to opening the door. Hand on the knob, half a second from pulling it back. 15 years of conditioning telling me that knock meant safety, meant someone I trusted, meant nothing to be afraid of. That's all it needed. Not strength, not speed. The right knock, and one voice, and my name said the right way. Marcus still comes over most weeks. Same knock every time. I wait for the porch boards now. Both of them. Every single time. My son Caleb is 8 years old, and until last October, he had never sleepwalked in his life. He's always been a solid sleeper, the kind of kid you have to shake awake for school. So when my husband came to get me at 1 a.m. because Caleb was standing at his bedroom window, we assumed something had shifted. Sleep patterns change. Kids pick up stress from school, from movies, from things they don't tell you about. We put him back to bed and thought nothing of it. Second night, same thing. My husband found him at 2:30, standing at the window in his room, hands at his sides, facing the backyard. He didn't respond when touched, just sort of floated back to awareness when we got him into the hallway with the light on. We mentioned it to his pediatrician at his next appointment. She said it was common in boys his age. Stress, growth, a phase. Give it a few weeks. Third night I woke on my own at 1:45. One of those parental instincts. Something changed in the house and my eyes opened without any sound prompting them. I went to check on Caleb. He was at the window, same posture, but this time his head was tilted the way it does when he's concentrating on something, the way he listens to a song he's trying to learn the words of. He was awake. He'd been awake the whole time. I put my hand on his shoulder and he turned and looked at me fully. "Mommy's outside," he said. I told him I was right here. He gave me the look he gets when he thinks I'm missing something obvious. "The other mommy. She keeps calling me." I checked the backyard from his window. Nearly 2 a.m., no lights on. Just the dark lawn and the wood fence at the back and the tree line beyond it. Nothing. I told him there was nobody out there and got him into bed. But I stood in the hallway for a long time after. I went back to my own bedroom and lay there thinking. The other mommy. I know how kids talk. They dream, they half-wake. They pull imagery from things they've seen and their brains stitch it into something that sounds coherent but isn't. I knew that. But the way Caleb had said it wasn't dreamy. He wasn't groggy. He was looking at me with clear, awake eyes and explaining something he considered obvious. I started checking the backyard from our bedroom window every night before I slept. 4 nights. Nothing. On the 5th night, I was at the window at 11:30 when the motion light on the back of the garage tripped. It swept the yard in white light and I looked and saw nothing. The light ran its 30-second cycle and went off. I stood there in the dark, and 30 seconds later it tripped again. Nothing visible. Third time it came on, I pressed my face close to the glass. At the back of the yard, near the fence, at the very edge where the light reached its limit, something was standing just outside the illuminated area. I could only see it because of what the edge of the light did at that boundary. A shape, tall, very still, at the place where the yard met the shadow. I watched it for the full cycle. When the light went off, I couldn't see it. When it came on again, it was gone. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I went out while Caleb was at school and walked to the back fence. The grass near the fence line was pressed flat in a rough patch about 2 feet wide, roughly 15 feet from where Caleb's bedroom window sat above. Like something had stood in the same spot and shifted its weight over many nights. Not just recently, for a while. I looked up at Caleb's window from the yard. Direct line of sight, perfect view. We put a motion-activated night vision camera on the back porch, and I asked Caleb, as carefully as I could, to describe the other mommy for me. He thought about it the way he does when he's trying to be accurate. He said she looked like me, but taller. He said her smile was big, really big, like more than yours. He said she always stood at the back of the yard and held her arms out and called his name and asked him to come outside. He said her voice sounded like mine, but echoed a little, like I was standing in a big room. Then he said she'd been doing it for a long time before he told us. I asked him how long. He thought about it. He said since the summer. It was November. 5 months. Whatever this was had been standing at the back of our yard calling our son's name in my voice for 5 months. And Caleb, curious, trusting, 8 years old and not yet calibrated to know what should frighten him, had been standing at the window every night watching it, treating it the way he'd treat any recurring thing in his environment. Just a feature of the night. I held it together until he went back to his room, and then I sat on the kitchen floor. Over the next 2 weeks, the porch camera caught something on 3 separate nights. A shape at the back of the yard near the fence, standing in roughly the same position. Night vision flattens everything into gray, so I couldn't be certain of much. But the shape was tall. Wrong proportions in a way I couldn't name precisely. And on the clearest of the 3 recordings, a Thursday around 1:15 a.m., the shape appeared to have its arms raised, slightly out from the body, angled toward the house. The way you hold your arms out when you're calling a child to come to you. We moved Caleb to the front bedroom that week. New room, window facing the street instead of the yard. He didn't object. He's cooperative like that when we explain the reasoning. But while I was helping him move some things, he asked me a question I've thought about every day since. He asked, "Is the other mommy going to be confused when she comes and I'm not at the window?" He wasn't scared. He was asking the way he'd ask about anyone he'd interacted with regularly, genuinely wondering what would happen to the routine, concerned in a small child way about whether she'd understand the change. I told him she'd be fine. He nodded and went back to sorting his things. Caleb's been in the front bedroom for 7 months. No sleepwalking, no window standing. The camera has caught nothing since we moved him. But here's what I haven't been able to let go of. It knew his name. It used my voice specifically. It raised its arms in the exact gesture that means, "Come here." The signal so universal a child recognizes it before they can speak. It didn't wander into our yard by accident. It knew which window to stand under. It knew which voice would work. That's not instinct. That's time. That's months of standing at a fence line in the dark, watching and learning what would bring a child to a window, what would eventually bring him outside. The only reason Caleb is in the front bedroom and not in the backyard is that he mentioned it, after 5 months, because he assumed we already knew. He thought we could all see her. I work overnight at a distribution center about 20 minutes from home. The shift runs 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., though on good nights I'm out by 5:30. I've done that drive home in the dark more times than I can count. Highway to county road, 2 lefts, into the driveway. By the time I'm pulling in, I'm not thinking about much. Just the coffee I'll make before I sleep. The first night it happened, I almost didn't register it. Thursday, mid-October, around 2:20 in the morning. I turned into the driveway and the headlights swept across the far end of it and caught a figure standing near the sidewalk, facing the street, back to the house. My wife's build, my wife's height, the gray fleece robe she wears when it's cold. I said her name before I'd consciously processed what I was seeing. She didn't move. I cut the engine and called her name out the window. Nothing. Got out and walked toward the end of the driveway, and when I was about 15 feet away, there was nothing there. Not fled, not moved. Just nothing. Empty driveway. No sound of footsteps. No movement anywhere. I went inside. She was in bed. Had been since 10. The robe was on the hook behind the bathroom door. I told myself it was exhaustion. 2 a.m., long shift, headlights casting shadows. I convinced myself I'd seen something and filled in the shape with something familiar. I didn't mention it. It happened the next week. Same spot, same time. I sat in the car for a few minutes this time and watched before getting out. The figure stood completely still. Didn't sway, didn't shift its weight, didn't do anything a person standing in the cold would naturally do. Just stood there. I got out and walked toward it, and it was gone when I reached the end of the driveway. My wife asleep. Robe on the hook. After the third time I told her. Kept it factual, tried not to alarm her. She listened and got quiet in that way she does when something actually worries her. We checked the Ring camera. I pulled up the footage from the nights I'd seen the figure. The doorbell cam covers the full driveway, including the end near the sidewalk. On the timestamps that matched, my car arriving, me getting out, me walking to the end of the driveway, the footage shows exactly that. My car. Me. Me standing at the end of the driveway for a minute before going inside. The end of the driveway is completely empty in every frame. Whatever I was looking at, the camera doesn't see it. We didn't say much after watching those clips. Just sat in the kitchen with the footage paused on my screen. I kept seeing it about once a week. Not every night. Most nights the driveway was clear. But often enough that I started slowing down on the street before I turned in, checking. Some nights nothing. Some nights it was there. Same spot, same posture, same robe. The last time was a Friday in early November. I pulled in slowly and it was there, but angled differently. Not fully facing the street. Turned a few degrees toward the house, toward me as I came in. And the head was tilted. Just a few degrees to one side. The way you tilt when you're listening to something faint you can't quite locate. I sat in the car and watched it for 4 minutes. I timed it. It didn't move. I didn't move. A car passed on the street, and its headlights crossed the end of the driveway, and for half a second the figure was fully lit. The tilt was wrong. The angle of the head didn't correspond to any point in the neck where a spine would allow that movement. Like the head was balanced on something that didn't have the right joints to make that angle happen naturally. The car passed. The driveway went dark. I went inside and didn't look back. I haven't seen it since. But about a week after the last time, my wife ran into our neighbor across the street. The neighbor mentioned, almost casually, that she'd seen my wife standing at the end of our driveway several times over the past month. Late at night, odd hours. Said she'd thought about coming over to check everything was okay, but hadn't wanted to intrude. My wife has never stood in that driveway in the middle of the night. Not once. The neighbor saw it too. From across the street, in the dark, it looked like my wife. The Ring camera saw empty space. 2 different observers, 2 completely different results. I've turned that over 100 times and I can't make it make sense. What it means is that whatever was standing at the end of my driveway was visible to the human eye and invisible to a camera. And it looked convincingly enough like my wife that a neighbor across the street had no reason to doubt it. I don't know what it wanted. I don't know why it came back every week, why it stood in the same spot, why it wore that specific shape. But I think about the tilt of the head in those last few seconds, like something listening very carefully to a specific sound, the sound of my routine, the sound of a night that repeats itself the same way over and over, learning the schedule. I try not to think too long about what it would do with that. I've taken my dog on the same walk every night for close to 3 years. Same time, same route, down the block, through the gap in the fence at the back of Orchard Way, onto the path that runs alongside the state forest behind our subdivision. Half a mile out, half a mile back. Remy knows the route better than I do. She's the one who sets the pace. I almost skipped it that Tuesday. Late October, cold enough to matter, and I was worn out from a long day and ready to be done with it. But Remy had been restless since dinner, pacing the living room, sitting at the door, giving me that look. So I pulled on my jacket, clipped her leash, and went. The path behind the subdivision has no lighting, no pavement either, just packed earth where enough people have walked that the grass stopped trying years ago. It runs between the back fences of the houses on our street and a line of trees that marks the edge of the state land. During the day, it's a nice walk. At night, it's just dark. I've done it enough times I don't think about it anymore. I know where the roots are, where the path dips, where Remy likes to stop and investigate things. It's routine. We were about a third of the way in when she stopped. She does this sometimes, hits a spot and just locks up, body rigid, nose in the air, ears forward. Usually there's a rabbit nearby or a deer at the tree line. I didn't react at first, just waited for her to get it out of her system. But she was staring ahead down the path, and when I looked up, I saw why. There was a figure about 50 yards in front of us, walking, moving in the same direction we were, at a steady pace, away from us. Dark clothes, average height, nothing immediately unusual. I figured it was a neighbor. Other people use the path. But Remy didn't move, and when I tried to ease her forward, she sat down, which she essentially never does on a walk. I watched the figure. It was still moving, but slowly it started to decelerate, like it was listening to something behind it. And then it stopped, planted itself in the middle of the path, facing away from us, and went completely still. I waited. Half a minute, maybe more. It didn't move. I took a single step backward. Barely even a decision, just reflex. The figure took a step backward. I know what I felt in that moment, and I'm not going to dress it up. My whole body went cold, and my brain went very quiet, and every piece of me that still ran on instinct said one thing clearly. I turned around and started walking back the way I'd come. Controlled, not running, telling myself there was a rational explanation. Footsteps started behind me. There was a delay of a few seconds, like something registering a change in behavior before it responded, and then the sound of someone walking on packed dirt, at my pace, behind me. I sped up. The footsteps sped up. I broke into a jog, and Remy, who had been frozen solid since she stopped, suddenly shot forward and I just ran. Through the gap in the fence, down the block, into the house. Locked the door. Stood in the kitchen with my heart slamming until I could breathe evenly again. I called the non-emergency line. An officer came out, walked the path with a flashlight, came back 20 minutes later with nothing. He wasn't dismissive, said they'd had a few calls from the area about people using the path at night, but he found nobody. No sign of anyone. I avoided the path for 2 weeks, walked Remy on the streets instead. Started convincing myself it had been a person, just a weird coincidence with the footsteps, just my own exhausted brain connecting things that weren't connected. Then one afternoon I went back with my neighbor and walked the full route. About a third of the way in, right about where Remy had planted herself and refused to go, there was a section of disturbed ground. Not footprints, an area roughly 2 feet across where the earth had been pressed down repeatedly, the way it gets when something heavy stands in the same spot over and over for a long time. And just off the path at the tree line, the lower branches of the shrubs were broken, snapped outward, facing the path. Like something standing inside the tree line had cleared itself a clean sight line to the open ground. That was exactly where I'd seen the figure standing. And it hadn't been there just that one night. I didn't go back to the path after that. Kept Remy on the sidewalks. Tried to file the whole thing somewhere in the back of my head and leave it. 3 weeks later, my wife asked where Remy's ID tag was. The small round one that hangs on her collar. Her name, our number. I checked the collar. The ring was still there, closed, not bent or broken. Just the tag was gone. I went back to the path one final time, walked straight to that spot. The tag was sitting in the center of the pressed earth. I had never let Remy off the leash that night, not once. The leash was in my hand the entire time we were on that path. There is no version of that walk where the tag ends up where it did. I picked it up, went home. Haven't been back. Remy still gives the gap in the fence a wide berth when we pass it. Pulls to the opposite side of the sidewalk. Doesn't look at it. Nothing scared her before that night, and nothing has scared her since, except that. Whatever she decided about that path, she made up her mind and hasn't revisited it. Dogs know. I think about that a lot. She knew before I did. She stopped, planted herself, refused to move forward, because whatever was on that path, she had already assessed it. She was right. I just didn't listen quickly enough. The footsteps that started behind me had a delay. A few seconds of lag before they responded to me turning around. Like something registering a change in behavior and then matching it. Not chasing. Not threatening. Mirroring. Like the point wasn't to close the distance, but to study how I moved. Whatever it was doing with that information, I hope I never find out.